Hello children, welcome to Crash Course. The chapter for our discussion today is moving charges, magnetism and matter. Here we discuss two basic ideas, the effects of electric current, that is magnetic effects of electric current. And we also discuss the mechanical effects of electric current, and of course we will take up the discussion of magnetism associated with matter as well. So, we will understand the basic concepts, we will familiarize ourselves with the equations. You know that a moving charge is responsible for magnetic effects of electric current, or moving charge is responsible for magnetic field. Suppose you consider a charge Q and assume that this is moving along this direction and the velocity vector is along this direction, and the point under consideration is here at a distance r, theta being the angle between these two vectors. The magnetic field due to this is given by mu naught by 4 pi q into v cross r divided by r cube, or we write it as mu naught by 4 pi q v cross r cap divided by r square. Observe that I am multiplying unit vector of r with proper vector. So, magnitude of this is given by mu naught by 4 pi q v sin theta divided by r square, where theta is the angle between these two vectors. If I consider flow of charges, it constitutes current, you know. Suppose I consider a current carrying conductor, it produces magnetic field. This is given by something known as Biot-Savart's law. According to Biot-Savart's law, or it deals basically with the magnetic field produced by a small element of a current carrying conductor. Suppose we consider a current carrying part whose length is dl, and assume that the point is at a distance r, theta being the angle between these two vectors, then the magnetic field at this point is given by mu naught by 4 pi I dl sin theta divided by r square. Vectorially, this is written as dB is equal to mu naught by 4 pi I into dl cross r cap divided by r square, or this is also written as mu naught by 4 pi I into dl vector cross r vector divided by r cube. So, the magnetic field is given by this expression, the strength is given by this expression, and very clearly the magnetic field is a cross product. That means if you curl your first 4 fingers of the right hand from first vector towards second vector, that means from the direction of dl towards the direction of r, you get the direction of the magnetic field produced by it. There are various applications of this simple concept. For example, if I consider the magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor, be due to a straight wire. If the wire is of finite length, for example, here is the current carrying conductor and the current is I, and this is the point under consideration at a perpendicular distance r, then suppose theta 1 and theta 2 are the angles subtended here, then we can write the magnetic field at that point as mu naught by 4 pi d, mu naught I by 4 pi d into cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2. Sometimes this is also represented in this form. If I consider the angles as say some alpha and beta, or say phi 1 and phi 2, then we can also write it in this form. For example, say phi 1 and phi 2, then this being r, the magnetic field at this point is given by mu naught I by 4 pi d, or say 4 pi r here into sine phi 1 plus sine phi 2. Any of these representations is perfectly fine. So this is the magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor. If the wire is infinitely long, for example, this is the infinitely long conductor and the point is here at a perpendicular distance I, then the magnetic field is given by mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. And if it is a semi-infinite, it is infinite from one side and the current is I and the point is at a distance r, then the magnetic field is given by mu naught I by 4 pi r. Mu naught I by 4 pi r. So the magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor is represented by any of these expressions. Magnetic field due to a circular coil. Suppose I consider a circular coil of radius r. Let's assume that the point is at a distance x from its center and also assume that the current is I. Then the magnetic field at a point on the axis at a distance x from the center is given by B is equal to, what is it? It is given by mu naught by 4 pi into 2 pi ni r square divided by r square plus x square to the power 3 by 2. What is this n? N is the number of turns. N is the number of turns and of course r is the radius, x is the distance, I is the current. So the magnetic field is given by this expression. And remember the magnetic field is along the axis. Magnetic field at the center is given by B is equal to mu naught Ni divided by 2R, 2 capital R. So magnetic field at the center is given by mu naught Ni divided by 2R, where R is the radius, of this circular coil. Now if I draw a graph of magnetic field as a function of x, magnetic field is maximum at the center and it goes on decreasing on either side, so we can show the variation in this form. The magnetic field goes on decreasing according to this being x is equal to 0, this is on the positive side, this is on the negative side. So magnetic field due to a current carrying conductor in the form of a circular loop is given by this expression. Suppose I consider such a current carrying loop. Let's assume that the current is in the clockwise direction, then the magnetic field is in the inward direction. Suppose the current is in the anti-clockwise direction, then the magnetic field is in the outward direction. So I am speaking of the magnetic field inside the coil, of course. So it is in the inward direction. I can show the field lines like this, or say field representation like this. Outward can be shown, with the help of a dot. So this is the representation of the magnetic field. Suppose I consider a part of the coil. Let's assume that the coil subtends, or say the arc of the coil subtends an angle phi at the center. Then the magnetic field due to this is given by mu naught I divided by mu naught I into, this is phi divided by 4 pi whole divided by r. So magnetic field due to a part of the circular current carrying loop subtending an angle phi at the center is given by mu naught I phi divided by 4 pi r, or we'll write it as mu naught I phi divided by 4 pi r. This is pretty simple. The number of turns corresponds to an angle phi divided by 2 pi. That's as simple as that. So the magnetic field is given by this simple expression due to a circular portion of the current carrying conductor. Magnetic field due to a solenoid. Magnetic field due to a solenoid is given by the following expression. What is a solenoid? You may wish to recall. It is a cylinder with conductors or say wire wound in the form of a circular coil. Now, if it is magnetic field somewhere inside, for example, this is the point, and assume that this angle is theta 1 and this angle is theta 2, then the magnetic field is given by mu naught n I into cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2, right? Mu naught n I divided by 2 into cos theta 1 minus cos theta 2. Suppose I consider a long solenoid. In the case of a long solenoid, the cross section is very small compared to the length, and thus the magnetic field is given by mu naught Ni. This time we should be very careful. Small n stands for total number of turns divided by length, that is number of turns per unit length. Number of turns per unit length is the magnetic field. Number of turns per unit length. Ampere's law is a tool which helps us in calculation of the magnetic field easily if there is a symmetric distribution of current. It's very simple. Let us consider an Amperian loop like this, and there are a couple of conductors carrying current, for example I1, I2, I3, I4, etc. Then according to Ampere's law, the loop integral of B dot dl over this circular loop is given by mu naught into I net. So loop integral B dot dl is equal to mu naught times I net. So we can use this expression to find out the magnetic field due to any symmetric current distribution. So these are some basic ideas regarding the magnetic field due to current carrying conductor, the magnetic field due to current distributions of different geometries. Current distributions of different geometries. Force on a moving charge. Force on a moving charge. Let us consider a charge Q which is moving in a magnetic field with velocity v, magnetic field being B. Then the force experienced by the charge is given by F is equal to Q into V cross B. Or we can write F is equal to Q V B sin theta, where theta is the angle between the velocity vector and the field vector. The angle between these two is given by this one. There are three possibilities. One is theta is equal to 0, that gives us F is equal to 0. Second is theta is equal to 90 degree, that gives us F is equal to QVB. Third is theta lies between 0 and 90, that gives you F is equal to QVB sin theta. In the first case, the path is unaffected. The path is unaffected in the first case. In the second case, it becomes a circular case, and in the third case, it becomes a helix. I will take up the circular and the helical paths. Let us assume that here is a region of magnetic field which is uniform, and a charged particle is given a velocity, and if it is given a velocity, then clearly what's the direction of the force? The direction of the force is upwards at the point of beginning, and clearly it takes up the circular track along this direction. So in an inward magnetic field, the charged particle traces an anti-clockwise circular track. Let us consider one more case. In this case, it is an outward magnetic field and the velocity is in this direction. Then clearly the charged particle traces this circle. Therefore, in the inward magnetic field, the charged particle traces a clockwise circle. Clockwise circle. Outward magnetic field, the charged particle traces this one. In both the cases, the radius is given by mv divided by qb and the time period is given by 2 pi m divided by qb. So, 2 pi m divided by qb. In both the cases, the radius is mv by qb, the time period is given by this one. And of course, the once the time period is known, you can also calculate the frequency, the angular frequency, etc. So, all of them can be calculated. And you know that momentum can also be expressed in terms of kinetic energy as root of 2mk. So, all these expressions are equally valid as far as the representation is concerned. Suppose I consider the next case, that means theta lies between 0 and 90. For example, assume that there is a magnetic field along this direction and the velocity is at an angle. So, this velocity can be resolved into two components, one parallel and the other perpendicular. Parallel component puts the charged particle into translatory motion, while perpendicular component puts the charged particle into circular track. Therefore, the track traced by the charged particle is a spring-like track or it is a helix. It is a helical path. And you know that a helix is understood in terms of radius, which is basically because of circular part, mv perpendicular by qb. And if theta is the angle, then we can write Vs, perpendicular Vs v cos theta. So, this can also be written as mv cos theta divided by qb. But you should be a little careful. It is basically v perpendicular. It could be v cos theta. The second thing is pitch, which is nothing but the distance between the successive turns, that is the distance travelled by the particle during one circular track. And this can be written as parallel component of the field into time period. So, this can be written as v sin theta into, this is going to be perpendicular component is going to be v sin theta. So, notice that this is v sin theta, this is v cos theta in this case because I taken this as the angle. So, this is v, this is b. So, parallel component is responsible for translational motion, perpendicular component is responsible for circular motion. So, this is going to be v sin theta and this is v cos theta into 2 pi m divided by qb. So, this part has to be kept in mind. So, a helical path is understood in terms of radius and pitch. Pitch is given by v parallel, that is basically v parallel into time period. And radius is given by mv perpendicular divided by qb. Suppose I consider a current carrying conductor. A current carrying conductor placed in a magnetic field experiences a force. For example, let us consider a conductor of length L and the current in it is I and it is in a magnetic field B. then the force on that current carrying conductor is given by F is equal to I into L cross B. F vector is I into L cross B. The magnitude of this is given by ILB sine theta, where theta is the angle between the current, that is nothing but the length, and the magnetic field. And of course, the direction is given by the cross product rule. If it is a varying magnetic field, or if the conductor is bent and if the magnetic field is B, then what do? We take a small portion of the current carrying conductor whose length is dl, then the force on that part is given by I into dl cross B, or we can write it as I into dl into B into sine theta, and in order to get the net force we integrate this one I into dl cross B, which is also equal to I dl B sine theta. So we can integrate it to get the net magnetic force on a current loop, or say current carrying conductor. Suppose we consider a current loop in a external magnetic field, For example, here is a current loop, and this current loop is of radius r, and let's assume that there is an inward magnetic field which is kept here. And of course, this B is uniform. So in this uniform magnetic field, the net force on the current loop is 0. The net force on the current loop is 0 in this uniform magnetic field. So remember, any current loop or current loop of any shape, for example, if I consider this current loop, even this experiences net force is equal to 0. So net force on a current loop is 0 in a uniform magnetic field. However, if I consider the current loop, for example, if I consider a current loop like this, let's assume that the current is I. This say rectangle of sides, say some A and B, is kept in a magnetic field like this. Let's assume that the magnetic field is shown this way, and the magnetic field strength is B, and let's assume that it subtends some angle with the perpendicular drawn to the loop. This experiences a torque. The current loop experiences a torque. The torque on the current loop is given by NIA into B into sine theta. NIA into B into sine theta, where this theta is the angle between the perpendicular to the area, or it is nothing but area vector, and the field direction. So the torque is nothing but NIA into B into sine theta. But this NIA is nothing but magnetic moment M. So I can write it as MB sine theta, or this in terms of cross product is M cross B. So magnetic torque or torque on a current loop is given by M cross B. Thus, in a uniform magnetic field, a current loop experiences a torque which is given by M cross B. And under the influence of this torque, a current loop may undergo a rotation. It may undergo a rotation. There are lots of applications based on this torque. One of such important applications is moving coil galvanometer. Moving coil galvanometer. What's a moving coil galvanometer? It is a coil, a sensitive coil which can undergo rotation when a current is passed through that. Clearly, torque depends on the current, and thus more the current, more is the deflection. This idea is used in moving coil galvanometer. So it basically consists of a rectangular coil of large number of turns of fine insulated copper wire wound over a non-magnetic metallic frame. and this is suspended by a very long and thin wire between the pole pieces of a permanent magnet. The current deflects the coil, and thus the deflection serves as a measure of the current. The current is directly proportional to the deflection, and therefore we can write I is equal to K into phi, where K is a constant of the galvanometer, which is known as galvanometer constant, having a value C divided by NAB. C is the torsional constant of the suspension wire, or this is known as twist per unit deflection, torsional constant of the wire. And of course, N is the number of turns in the coil, and A is the area of the coil, and B is the magnetic field of the radial magnets. The current sensitivity is given by deflection per unit current, and of course this is the reciprocal of K, and therefore NAB divided by C. To get higher current sensitivity, we can increase the area, or we can increase the number of turns, or we can increase the magnetic field strength, or we can make the value of C less. So this is one of the very important applications of the idea of torque on a current loop. Torque on a current loop. Properties of magnetic materials. First one is magnetizing force or intensity of magnetizing field. Magnetizing force or intensity of magnetizing field. H. This is defined as the force experienced by a unit north pole placed at a point in the field. So, as the name suggests, it is the intensity of the magnetizing field. The direction of H is same as the direction of B, and this is defined as B is equal to mu into H, where mu is a constant known as magnetic permeability. This is known as magnetic permeability. Intensity of magnetization represented by I. You know, when a magnetic material is placed in a magnetic field, it gets magnetized and it acquires certain magnetic dipole moment. The intensity of magnetization is defined as magnetic moment per unit volume. This is many times represented as 2m into L divided by A into 2L. Just like 2q into 2L, this is m into 2L. So we can also write it as m divided by A, where m is the pole strength and A is the area. Magnetic susceptibility. This is represented by the symbol chi. Magnetic susceptibility indicates the ease with which a substance can be magnetized. This magnetic susceptibility is the ratio of, it is defined as the ratio of intensity of magnetization to the intensity of magnetizing field. Intensity of magnetizing field. in which the material is placed. So, I divided by H. Magnetic permeability. Represented by mu. It is the ratio of the magnetic field to the intensity of magnetizing field. Intensity of magnetizing field. So, B divided by H. So, this is known as magnetic permeability. Magnetic induction or this is also known as flux density, represented by the symbol B. This is nothing but, this is actually a measure of total number of lines of force per unit area due to the flux density B naught in vacuum by that magnetizing field, and flux density Bm due to magnetization of the material. So, repeat, the flux density is the total number of lines of force per unit area due to flux density B naught in vacuum. Suppose this is B naught, and that due to magnetization of the material. So, B is given by B naught plus Bm. Depending on these properties, the materials are classified into three different groups. We have diamagnetic materials, we have paramagnetic materials, and we have ferromagnetic materials. Curie's law deals with magnetic susceptibility and the temperature relation for paramagnetic materials. So, according to Curie's law, for paramagnetic materials, susceptibility is inversely proportional to the absolute temperature. It's inversely proportional to absolute temperature. This is known as Curie's law. This is written as chi is equal to C divided by T, where C is called Curie's constant. In the case of ferromagnetic materials, this law can be represented in a slightly different form. This is represented as K divided by T minus Tc, where Tc is nothing but a Curie temperature. So, in the case of ferromagnetic materials, the susceptibility is very high and constant up to a certain temperature, above which it varies with temperature according to this equation. According to the equation, chi is equal to K divided by T minus Tc. Terrestrial magnetism or Earth's magnetism. You know that the interior of the Earth contains a hot plasma which is actually in circulation. This circulation of plasma is like the flow of currents, and due to this there is a magnetic field outside the Earth. And in order to understand this, we use three different terminologies. One is the idea of meridian, the second is the idea of declination, third is inclination. First is magnetic meridian. Meridian generally refers to plane. Suppose I consider Earth represented as a sphere. These are the geographic north and south poles. And you know that near geographic north pole is located magnetic south pole and vice versa. Now, if I consider any place on the Earth, we can form a plane with the help of the two magnetic poles and the place under consideration. this plane is what is called as magnetic meridian. So, this is basically a plane coinciding with the magnetic north and south and that place. Likewise, we can also form one more plane, for example, north-south and the place under consideration. This becomes geographic meridian. So, if you look at the geographic meridian and magnetic meridian, we can represent it like this. For example, this is say geographic meridian, then magnetic meridian is something like this. These two meridian, this is geographic meridian, this is magnetic meridian, and these two subtend an angle phi, say, between them. This is what is called as declination. So, declination is the angle between geographic meridian and magnetic meridian. Geographic meridian and magnetic meridian. The other is what is known as angle of inclination or dip. You know, if I consider Earth's magnetic field, the Earth's magnetic field is not horizontal at a place. It may not be horizontal. For example, if we consider say a place, this is the horizontal, the Earth's magnetic field is in this direction say, and the angle it subtends with the horizontal is what is called as angle of dip. So, angle of dip or angle of inclination is the angle made by the Earth's magnetic field with the horizontal at a place. This P can be resolved into two components, one is BV and the other is BH. BH is horizontal component of the Earth's magnetic field and BV is the vertical component of the Earth's magnetic field. So, what we can write is BH is equal to B cos theta and BV is equal to B sin theta. So, resultant Earth's magnetic field B is equal to square root of BH square plus BV square. And the second relation is we can divide one by the other and that gives us tan theta is equal to BV divided by BH, BV divided by BH. So, we can also write BV is equal to BH tan theta. And remember, BH is 0 at poles and maximum at equator. Maximum at the equator. So, these ideas are to be kept in mind clearly as far as terrestrial magnetism is concerned. So, these are some basic ideas regarding magnetism and matter. Familiarize yourselves with these equations, with these concepts. Let us take up some problems based on these concepts in our next session. The chapter on which we discuss numerical problems today is moving charges, magnetism and matter. We have already revised the concept, we are familiar with the equations. So, it's the time to put those concepts and equations into problem solving. Example 1. Electric field strength is E naught I and the magnetic field is B naught I and they exist in a region. A charged particle Q is released from rest at origin. The work done by both the fields after certain time is. Okay. Well, you know that magnetic field does no work. So, work done by the magnetic field is equal to 0. and the work done by the electric field is nothing but electric force into displacement. That is nothing but Q into E into X. So if the charged particle travels certain distance x, then the net work done by both the fields together is that by the magnetic field, that by the electric field, 0 plus Q into E into X, that is nothing but QE into X. The electric field is along x axis, therefore it does work for any displacement along x axis. So QEX is our correct answer. Example 2. A long straight wire carrying a current of 30 ampere is placed in an external uniform magnetic field of strength 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. The magnetic field is acting parallel to the direction of the current. The magnitude of the resultant magnetic induction in Tesla at a point 2 centimeter away from the wire is given you the value of mu naught as well. So here the question says the magnetic field is acting parallel to the direction of the current, and the value of magnetic field due to the current carrying conductor is to be found out. So what is that? The magnetic field due to a straight current carrying conductor is given by, I'll call it as 1. This is given by mu naught I divided by 2 pi r. So upon substitution and simplification, you get it as 3 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. Along with that, there exists an external magnetic field of 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla also. So there are two magnetic fields which are perpendicular to each other, and therefore what is the resultant field? This is square root of B1 square plus BH square. So square root of 3 into 10 to the power of minus 4 whole square plus 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 whole square, which is equal to 5 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. So the magnetic field at that point is 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. Sorry, 5 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. C is the correct choice. Example 3. A square loop of side L carries a current I. Another smaller square loop of side L, which is much smaller than L, carrying a current I is placed inside the bigger loop such that they are coplanar with their centers coinciding. If the current in the loops are same in direction, the magnitude of the torque on the smaller loop is okay. So there are coplanar loops like this. There are two loops and their currents are same in direction, and the question is the torque. So clearly torque is equal to mb sin theta. M is the magnetic moment of the smaller loop and B is the external magnetic field, that is the field produced by the other one, and sin theta, angle between M and B. But if you notice this, the magnetic moment of the smaller loop is in the inward direction. The magnetic field produced by the outer coil is also in the inward direction, which means that the angle between these two is 0. So this is mb sin 0, and therefore the torque becomes 0. You don't have to calculate the value of m and b in this case. It straight away turns out to be 0. Example 4. Magnetic induction at the center of a circular loop carrying a current is B. If A is the area of the coil, then the magnetic dipole moment of the loop is. Okay. So he says is a circular loop and the magnetic field is B. A is the area of the loop. We know that the magnetic field is given by mu naught I divided by 2r at the center of a circular coil, and area A is pi r square and magnetic moment is I into A. So I can write from this expression I is equal to B into 2r divided by mu naught, and from this expression I can write r is equal to A divided by pi under root. So I'll substitute all these details. I is B into 2r divided by mu naught, and A is pi into A divided by pi r square. A, I can write it in terms of A only. And B into 2 by mu naught, r is root of A divided by pi into A. So upon simplification we get it as 2BA divided by mu naught root of A divided by pi. So the magnetic moment is 2BA divided by mu naught root of A divided by pi. So which is our correct option? Yes, D. Example 5. A cell of negligible internal resistance is connected to a tangent galvanometer and the deflection produced is 30 degree. If 3 such cells are connected in series and the combination is connected to the same galvanometer, the deflection will be. Okay. The current is directly proportional to tan theta, or current is directly proportional to tan of angle of deflection. So I'll write initially it is I1 and finally it becomes, what is it? I is proportional to tan theta. Finally it is 3I because there are 3 such cells and the internal resistance is negligibly small. This is tan theta. I can write tan theta divided by tan 30 is equal to 3, or it gives us tan theta is equal to 3 tan 30. That gives me theta is equal to 60 degree. Theta is equal to 60 degree. B is the correct choice. A particle of mass 1 into 10 to the power of minus 26 kg and charge 1.6 into 10 to the power of minus 19 coulomb traveling with a velocity of 1.28 into 10 to the power of 6 meters per second along the positive x-axis enters a region in which a uniform field of minus 102.4 into 10 to the power of 3 k cap Newton per coulomb and magnetic field of B is equal to 8 into 10 to the power of minus 2 j cap Tesla. The direction of motion of the particle is. Okay. Now if you look at this problem, the charged particle experiences 2 forces. Electric force is QE and the magnetic force is QVB. So now the question is, if these two are equal to each other, will the particle move along this straight line is the basic question. Let us cross check. Is that E is equal to VB? Let us see. What is the value of E? Minus 102.4 into 10 to the power of 3. I am just going to take its value. This is equal to V. 1.28 into 10 to the power of 6 and B. What is the value of B? 8 into 10 to the power of minus 2. So you notice that these two are equal to each other. That means E is equal to VB is satisfied. If E is equal to VB is satisfied, the charged particle experiences zero net force. If the net force is 0, the charged particle moves along the original direction. because there is no acceleration, there is no reason for it to change its path nor change its speed. So the charged particle was moving along x-axis and it continues to move along x-axis. A is our correct choice. Next one. A horizontal wire of length 0.05 meter carries a current of 5 ampere. If the mass of the wire is 10 milligrams, the minimum magnetic field required to support the weight of the wire is. The charged particle, rather the current carrying conductor, experiences two forces. One is weight, and in order to keep it in equilibrium, it must experience magnetic force also. So magnetic force must be equal to mg. This is I into L into B is equal to m into g. So B is equal to mg divided by IL. mg divided by IL. What are the values? 10 milligram into 10 whole divided by current is 5 ampere and the length is 0.05, and that gives us 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. So the minimum magnetic field required to balance it is 4 into 10 to the power of minus 4 Tesla. Is the correct choice. Example 8. A moving coil galvanometer A has 200 turns and a resistance of 100 ohm. Another meter B has 100 turns and a resistance of 40 ohm. All the other quantities are same in both the cases. The current sensitivity. Okay. You know, current sensitivity is given by theta divided by I. That is nothing but NAB divided by C. Now, what are all the things that are different here? The things that are different are number of turns. For A is 200 and that for B is 100. And the resistance is 100 ohm and the resistance of the B is 40 ohm. Right? So, if I substitute these details, I'll get theta by I for A is equal to 2 times theta by I for B. So, the current sensitivity of A is 2 times the current sensitivity of B. B is our correct choice. Example 9. 3 identical thin bar magnets, each of moment m, are placed along 3 adjacent sides of a regular hexagon as shown. The resultant magnetic moment of the system is. Okay. So now, the magnetic moment, you know, is a vector quantity. And therefore, if I consider this is magnetic moment 1 and this is the magnetic moment of the second and the third is of this magnetic moment. So we want to find out the resultant of these 3. So what is it going to be? So, you know, it is something like 3 vectors. Vector A, and if you look at the other one, the last one, so I will consider M1 only and M3. Those two subtend an angle 120 degree between them, and the resultant of these two is nothing but a single magnetic moment of, you know, all of them are equal magnitude wise. So this is M, this is also M, so this is nothing but M4, which is equal to M. And now we have one more, M4 is equal to M, and along with that you also have M2. M2 is equal to M. what is the resultant of these two? The resultant of these two is 2m. So the resultant magnetic moment of this combination is 2m. D is our correct choice. Example 10. The magnetic moment of a bar magnet is 0.256 ampere meter square. Its pole strength is 400 milliampere meter. It's cut into two equal pieces and those two pieces are arranged at right angles to each other with their unlike poles in contact or like poles in contact. The resultant magnetic moment of the system is, again, simple. There are two magnetic moments and of course m1 is equal to m2 is equal to m by 2 because they are cut into two parts. And there are two magnetic moments. This is m1 and the other is m2 and they are perpendicular to each other. Therefore, the resultant magnetic moment, net magnetic moment, is square root of m1 square plus m2 square. That is root of m by 2 whole square plus m by 2 whole square. Or this is nothing but m by 2 root 2 or m by root 2. This is the magnetic moment. And how to find out the magnetic moment? Magnetic moment is equal to pole strength into pole separation. So you can substitute this. The magnetic moment is already given, so you don't have to calculate it also. Magnetic moment is already given over there. So it is going to be 256 divided by root 2 into 10 to the power of minus 3. So 256 divided by root 2 into 10 to the power of minus 3. C is our correct option. Next one. "300 turns of a thin wire are uniformly wound on a permanent magnet shaped as a cylinder of length 15 centimeter. When a current of 3 ampere is passed through the wire, the field outside the magnet disappears. Then the coercive force of the material is." Okay. So here the magnetic field at the center of a long straight conductor whose cross section is in the form of a thin half ring is given by B is equal to mu naught I divided by pi square R. And so the force per unit length of the wire carrying a current I and placed on the axis of the first conductor turns out to be F is equal to B I into L. That is the force per unit length on the conductor. If I simplify it, this is mu naught I square divided by pi square R per unit length. So this is force, and therefore force per unit length turns out to be F by L, which is Bi. So we can substitute for these details here. All the details are known to us. Number of turns is known to us, current is known to us, etc. And this turns out to be 2 into 10 to the power of 3 Newton per meter, force per unit length. So 2 into 10 to the power of 3, that is 2 kilonewton per meter. Next one. A coil in the shape of an equilateral triangle of side 0.02 meter is suspended from a vertex such that it is hanging in a vertical plane between the pole pieces of a permanent magnet producing a horizontal field of 5 into 10 to the power of minus 2 Tesla. Find the couple acting on the coil when a current of 0.1 ampere is passed through it and the magnetic field parallel to its plane. So I need to find the value of torque. You know that torque is given by, or couple is given by, NIAB sin theta. So what is it equal to? I also need to find the area. So what is the area? This is nothing but half into L cross L and the magnitude, of course, that turns out to be half into L sine 60. What is the value of this one? This turns out to be, if I simplify it, I'll get it as 1.732 into 10 to the power of minus 4 meters square. So torque turns out to be N, how many turns of the coil? He says a coil. That means there is only one turn. So this is 1 into I 0.1 ampere into area 1.732 into 10 to the power of minus 4 into magnetic field is 5 into 10 to the power of minus 2 into sine 90. So this turns out to be 0.866 into 10 to the power of minus 6 Newton meter. So this is the expression for the torque. So the torque is 0.866 into 10 to the power of minus 6 is the correct choice. Next one. A coil in the shape of an equilateral triangle of side L is suspended between the pole pieces of a permanent magnet such that B is in the plane of the coil. If due to a current I in the triangle, a torque acts on it, then the side of the triangle is okay. Similar problem. Area of the triangle A can be written as half L into L sine theta, that is L square root 3 divided by 4, and the torque is I A B, of course n is 1, sine 90 is 1, so this is B I L square root 3 divided by 4, and therefore L is equal to 2 torque divided by root 3 Bi to the power of 1 by 2. So which is our correct option? 2 into tau divided by root 3 Bi. C is our correct option. 14. The resistance of the coil of a tangent galvanometer is 60 ohm. It is connected to a battery of negligible internal resistance. The deflection is found to be 60 degree. Now a shunt resistance of 30 ohm is connected across the coil of the tangent galvanometer. The deflection produced will be. So again, I1 by I2 is equal to tan 60 divided by tan 30. So if I simplify this, I get theta. So theta turns out to be 60 degree. Example 15. A magnetized wire is bent into an arc of a circle subtending an angle 60 degree at its center. Then its magnetic moment is x. If the same wire is bent into an arc of a circle subtending an angle 90 at its center, then the magnetic moment will be. The magnetic moment is given by 2m into sine theta by 2 divided by theta. So if I substitute that, I get 2 root 2 x divided by 3. So the new magnetic moment turns out to be 2 root 2 x divided by 3. Two magnets of magnetic moments m and root 3 m are joined to form a cross. The combination is suspended freely in a uniform magnetic field. In the equilibrium position, the angle between the magnetic moment root 3 m and the field is. Okay. So here tan theta is equal to m1 divided by m2. So this is equal to, what is that? m1 is m, and this is m2, which is root 3m, so it is 1 by root 3. So what is our correct choice? This turns out to be theta is equal to 30. 17. A magnetic dipole is under the influence of two magnetic fields having an angle of 120 degree between them. One of the fields has a magnitude of 1.2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 Tesla. If the dipole comes to stable equilibrium at an angle of 30 degree with this field, then the magnitude of the other field is. So he says it is in stable equilibrium position, which means that the net torque is 0. That means m b1 sin theta 1 is equal to m b2 sin theta 2, or b1 sin 30 is equal to b2 sin 90. So I can write b2 is equal to b1, that is 1.2 into 10 to the power of minus 2 into sin 30 divided by sin 90. So this turns out to be 0.6 into 10 to the power of minus 2 Tesla. B is the correct choice. 18. A galvanometer of resistance 25 ohm is connected to a battery of 2 volt along with a resistance in series. When the value of this resistance is 3000 ohm, a full scale deflection of 30 units is obtained in the galvanometer. In order to reduce this deflection to 20 units, the resistance in series will be. The resistance to be connected is given by V by Ig minus G, and you can substitute for that. So what is the value of V to reduce this deflection to 20 units, right? So this V can be found out, and Ig, what is the value of Ig? The value of Ig is the current through the galvanometer. And what's the resistance of the galvanometer? The resistance of the galvanometer is given to be 25 ohm. So upon substitution and simplification, you get as 4513 ohm. A solenoid of length 0.5 meter has a radius of 1 centimeter and is made up of 500 turns. It carries a current of 5 ampere. The magnetic field inside the solenoid is. Magnetic field inside the solenoid is given by mu naught Ni. So if I substitute the value mu naught N, 500 turns per unit length, and the current is 5 ampere, and upon substitution you get as 6.28 into 10 to the power of minus 3 Tesla. The length of a solenoid is 0.1 meter and its diameter is very small. A wire is wound over in 2 layers. The number of turns in the inner layer is 50 and that on the outer layer is 40. The strength of the current flowing in 2 layers in the same direction is 3 ampere. The magnetic field at the center of the solenoid will be. Okay. The magnetic field is given by mu naught I into N1 divided by L plus N2 divided by L. There are 2 turns. So number of turns per unit length for those two will be different. So we can substitute for that mu naught into current 3 into N1, 50 divided by 0.1 plus 40 divided by 0.1, and this simplifies to 3.4 into 10 to the power of minus 3 Tesla.